Ahoy hoy, I'm Planet Walk, and a small while back, I made a video showing how Nathan Oakley basically made a fool of himself. And he responded. So what we're doing today is not giving that video the time of day. You see, it was just Nathan Oakley claiming that I was triggered and making the same point that I had already debunked in that video. He didn't actually address the point that I was making. So no, I'm not going to respond to it. But I must say, there is a certain irony in Nathan Oakley calling someone else triggered, when this is how he acts most days.
Seismology is not science. That's not a question, that's a statement of fact.
As you can see, Nathan is very easily triggered.
This arrogant little millennial prick.
Okay Nathan, just calm down. Stress is bad for your health, so just never mind. So earlier in this video, I played a clip when Nathan claimed that seismology is not science, and because flat earthers love to point to this as a reason why I'm mentally deficient, that is what I'm going to be responding to today. Now this is from a debate that I had with Nathan last year, and I was going to make a video on it addressing it, but I forgot about it. Until Nathan re-uploaded it this year. He must be short on people to debate because he scared them all off. Now I'll admit, in that debate, I didn't look too well because there was something that I didn't say initially, which I thought would have been very obvious that that was what I meant. But no, they strawmanned me. And it is very easy to knock over a strawman and then declare that you are the winner. So for half that debate, I was trying to explain what I actually meant rather than what they thought that I meant. So let's start with a couple of Nathan's points, most particularly the point where Nathan says seismology is not a science, and apparently that's a fact. You love citations, don't you, Nathan? So from Science Direct we have seismology is the science of earthquakes. From Britannica we have seismology, scientific discipline that is concerned with the study of earthquakes. And from study.com, seismologists are scientists who study earthquakes. So there we have it. Seismology is clearly a science. However, Nathan would still disagree. Why? Because what is the independent variable? Now when it comes to independent and dependent variables, that is more for experiments, not entire branches of science. Like germ theory doesn't have a single independent and dependent variable that proves germ theory. It's pretty much like saying that physics isn't a science because physics doesn't have an independent variable that you can point to and show, that's the cause of physics. To which Nathan Oakley would say, well, physics, you can easily create an experiment within physics, which is a scientific experiment. He would say that you can't do that in seismology. Well, I'd say that you kinda can. Now, in the debate, I used ground shaking as the dependent variable, and location as the independent variable. Now, immediately, they went to location causes ground shaking. Aha, lol. What I'm not okay with saying is that the independent variable, which in this case would be location, causes ground shaking. Because that's
location's
no one
not a cause, you stupid idiot. You think location is a cause?
Well, changing your location will cause a change in the amount of ground shake you experience.
So you think if I vary and manipulate location, I will cause an earthquake? Yeah.
You'll cause
just
the amount of
hold your tongue. Shut up, you stupid boy. Reduced. Shut up!
So, as you just heard, what I was trying to say is that I'm not okay with saying that the independent variable, which in this case is location, causes the dependent variable, which in this case is ground shaking. What I am okay with saying is that a change in the independent variable can cause a change in the dependent variable. And also, as you heard, Nathan completely ignored what I was saying and strawmanned me by stating that my argument was location causes ground shaking. So once more, I'm going to delve into independent and dependent variables. So what is a variable? Well, a variable is something that can vary. I mean, that's quite self-explanatory, isn't it? So in programming, much like in science, variables can be a whole range of things. A variable could be a true or false statement, it could be a number, or it could be an object. Nathan and Quantum Eraser tend to treat variables more as a true or false statement. If this is true, then this should happen. whereas that's not how it works. So, for example, one experiment that I remember doing in high school was one where we would take small pieces of potato and then measure their weight, then put them in either water or a salt solution. After a couple of days, we took them out of the salt solution or water, then measured their weight again. So what do you think might have been the independent and dependent variables there? Well, it's quite clear that the dependent variable was the change in weight of the potato. The independent variable was the salinity of the water. So does that mean that salinity of the water causes a change in weight of potato? No. In fact, stating it that way makes it sound very ridiculous, because if I remember correctly, and I might be wrong on this, the increased salinity caused the change in weight of the potato to actually go down. So notice how in that case, the salinity of the water did not cause the change in weight of the potatoes. It was the water that caused the change in weight of potatoes. However, the salinity did affect it. So my point here is that an independent variable doesn't have to just be a true or false statement which causes the dependent variable. It's probably more likely to be a value that, when changed, affects what the value of the dependent variable is. Or maybe it doesn't. If it doesn't affect it, then whatever hypothesis said that it would affect it has now been falsified. So I hope that clears things up. You presume that a change in the independent variable causes a change in the dependent variable, not you presume that independent variable causes the dependent variable. But to put it in a more simpler way, you presume that the independent variable affects the dependent variable. Now, there might be a bit more to it, like there might be a certain mechanism that predicts that one variable will affect another, but I think that's a little too complicated for flat earthers right now. Yeah, I know that independent variables and dependent variables are too complicated already, but this is even more complicated for them.
That was his last one. This one right here.
Yeah, that's...
A change in location causes change in ground shaking.
My God.
Are you retarded?
In measured ground shaking. Measured.
No, that changes everything. Just when I thought you couldn't be any dumber, you go and do something like this and totally redeem yourself.
Now, of course, I did have to add that qualifier, because when you change your position, you're changing the amount of ground shaking that you measure, not the actual amount of ground shaking that's taking place, just the measurements. So what's wrong with a change in location causes a change in measured ground shaking?
Okay, let's do a little
Who
test.
are you,
Hold on.
King
Let's test it. Let's test this hypothesis. Right. Okay. I want you to right now plan a walk, move 4 inches to the right.
So here is where I forgot to add a small qualifier. I mean when an earthquake is taking place, dumbass. It'd be very much like having a whole lot of different salt solutions, having a whole lot of pieces of potato, measuring the weight of the pieces of potato, and then each putting them next to a different glass of salt solution, and then going, well, there's no difference in the change of weight of the potatoes. Well, no shit, Sherlock. You're supposed to put them in the salt solution, Einstein. So the mistake that I made in that debate was I didn't initially specify that it's supposed to be during an earthquake. And I would have thought that any normal person would have assumed that's what I meant. But no, not Nathan and friends. They've got to use what they think that I meant, and completely ignore me when I try and clarify what I actually meant.
Did your change in location cause ground shaking?
Not necessarily, but we need to wait for an earthquake to actually happen. No. Don't clarify what you mean. Answer my straw man. So if I'm at the epicenter of the earthquake, and when an earthquake happened, and then there's someone who's 10 kilometers away, will the person 10 kilometers away not experience less ground shaking?
You're not getting caused.
That
though.
person caused the ground shaking.
Is getting measurements, so you don't know the cause of those measurements. All you were doing is getting a difference in measurements, man.
Now, I may not be finding out the exact cause of the measurements, but at least I'm finding out why we're getting certain measurements. I might be finding out why the measurements are different at one location to another. And that might be because as you get further away from the epicenter, there's less ground shaking. I can then use that to predict what should happen in earthquakes in the future, and when it does happen with earthquakes in the future, it becomes useful.
Wait, what if another earthquake never happens? Well, an experiment is not when you're waiting for something to happen. If I told you, yeah, I got this experiment I'm going to do, and you're like, what is it? Well, I just got to wait for the sky to turn green, and then I'm going to see if water will reflect. You'd be like, what the hell are you doing? You can't just wait for something to observe and call it an experiment.
Except you can wait for something to happen to perform an experiment. You could wait till, I don't know, midday to perform certain experiments for when the sun's overhead. Or you could wait until, I don't know, the transit of Venus to figure out how far away the sun is. And if earthquakes stop happening, then it becomes very interesting because earthquakes happen all the time. In fact, there was an earthquake about an hour ago close to Litten in New Zealand. Small earthquake, yes, but still an earthquake. So you'd try and figure out, okay, what has changed? Why have all the earthquakes stopped? Now, some people at this point might be going, well, this is all good and all, but seismology has nothing to do with the Earth being a globe, right? Or at least the flat earthers might say that. I think globe earthers are usually a little smarter than that. Well, when it comes to seismology, if there is a large enough earthquake, no matter where you are on Earth, you will be able to detect it, given that you've got the proper instruments, of course. And depending on where you are, you might only be picking up PP waves, and not P waves because you're in a shadow because of the core of the Earth. And I guarantee you, if you were to ask any seismologist if the Earth is flat, they would laugh at you and say, of course the Earth is not flat. My job literally relies on the Earth being a globe to make accurate predictions. Now, there is something that I want to point out. The whole thing about independent variables, it doesn't matter, because not all experiments need an independent variable. That's right, I've wasted a lot of time talking about independent variables when they don't matter. Let me get Professor Dave to explain why. Can an independent variable be a presumed influencing factor, or must it be the presumed cause in an experiment?
Well, it doesn't have to be presumed anything, right? You select one, and then you observe its effect or alleged effect on some other variable, right? It can be anything. But that's the point with these flat earthers or other groups too, is they take they like to talk about the scientific method, and they'll quote the version of the scientific method that they learned in like 3rd grade or something, and pretend that it is some kind of gospel or doctrine as to how science must be done. I mean, this is ridiculous. When I was working in a chemistry lab, you have a reaction you're going to do, and you do it, and you see if it worked. Right? There's no hypothesis. It doesn't fit that simplistic model. It's still science. Yeah. Chemistry is science. When you do chemical reactions, you're doing science. Yeah. When you analyze your product, when you isolate it, so it's just them trying to take this unbelievably limited pseudo understanding of the scientific method and try to apply it broadly to the entire body of science, which is just, it's insane.
So that was from my discussion with Professor Dave. And I've also asked that question to people like Landon Knoll, who's a scientist. And he gave a very similar response. So is it the scientists that are wrong? Or is it the flat earthers pretending that they know science when they actually don't? Now, there is also something else that's funny that I want to point out that was said by Arwen.
The seismology charts have been updating on a rapid phase, constantly changing in the last.
So you'd rather that if we found an error with something like a seismology chart, that we should just keep on using it anyway. Yep, that sums up Flat Earth pretty well. Now, there is a second topic to this video. Normally, I'd just put the topic in a separate video and then release that video separately, but I want to get all the Nathan Oakley stuff done in one video. Because this might be the final video that I make on Nathan Oakley for a while. Unless he actually makes a video that actually addresses the points that I make, or if he does something unbelievably stupid that everyone's talking about. And judging by the last video that he made on me, the former seems highly unlikely. Now, there is always the chance that he might do something incredibly stupid, but there's only so many times that you can do something incredibly stupid before people say, oh, he's just doing it for attention, right? Oh wait, Anyway, on with the video. So, a bit of time passed since the discussion about seismology, and then this happened.
So we've solved the problem, Planner Walk, because it's the first.
Not really, because...
Shut up!
If something gets smaller...
Shut your stupid, millennial, arrogant, stupid mouth. I have not finished berating your stupidity. I'll start again. Do not interrupt me. Do not interrupt me doesn't mean immediately interrupt me.
So very clearly, Nathan hates being interrupted, and I can understand that, considering how many times I was interrupted in that debate by Nathan himself. But that was only half the point of playing that clip. And the other half is, how did we get to that point? Well, I was giving a bit of a long-winded explanation of how we can test to see if Earth curvature is blocking objects that are disappearing over the horizon. And then this happened.
Answer the question. Geometric
to
drop or visual drop?
So, it could be either.
That's right.
And me and Quantum Eraser were in agreement. Visual drop or geometric drop could make something disappear over the horizon. But Nathan Oakley disagreed.
Hold on, you said it could be either. No, that's incorrect. One of those.
So it can't be.
I'm just in the middle of a statement. You've said something that's incorrect. I'm going to correct you. You said it could be one or other. Either, you said, correct?
Yes. Now that part was very important because Nathan then goes on to perform some very dishonest debate tactics.
Now let me correct you. One of those things will always hold true for anyone with eyeballs. Now, the visual fact that things get smaller with distance and then eventually disappear is always going to be the case. It's not either the thing in the distance drops around a curve or it gets smaller with distance. It's always going to get smaller with distance. That's a fact.
But things getting smaller with distance doesn't mean that it drops.
That's correct. You stated it was either or. Now I've got you to concede that one of them is absolute fact.
So did you catch it? I said that either one of these two things could be correct. That does not necessarily mean that you're excluding the other if one is correct. It means that both could be correct. And then the sneaky little trick that Nathan pulled is he said, so you said that it could be one or the other. And I agreed because I was thinking, yeah, it could be one or the other. And then Nathan claims that I was creating a false dichotomy because apparently what I said meant that if one is correct, then the other must be incorrect. And then he claims that it was my idea attempting to gaslight me. So Nathan, you slimy Weasley bastard, I have to take my hat or my beanie off to you. Because never have I seen such a display of dishonest debate tactics. Ever. So I'd actually forgotten the way in which things happened until I rewatched it, and it's way worse than I thought, because I'd actually forgotten that Nathan tried to stick words in my mouth and then gaslight me. So for all you flat earthers that say, well, if Nathan's wrong, why don't you go on his show and debate him? That's why. He's a dishonest, slimy prick. And that's ignoring the fact that he shouts over people that disagrees with him, and if you try to interrupt him, he will either shout over you or mute you. Now that's not to say that I'd never debate Nathan Oakley, because I would debate Nathan Oakley. If it was hosted by a channel like Modern Day Debates, I'm sure James would love to have us on. But that's pretty much saying that I'll never debate Nathan Oakley, because Nathan Oakley refuses to step outside of his comfort zone. So hopefully people watching this now understand how Nathan Oakley argues. He's not arguing in good faith, so if you're tempted to go on and debate him, don't. Anytime that anyone goes onto Nathan's channel to debate him, the winner is Nathan. Even if they make Nathan look stupid, because it keeps people interested. But anyway, that's all I've got to say about Nathan Oakley for now. Now, I might make one more video on Black Swan, and Nathan, just because someone makes a video on the Black Swan doesn't mean that they're talking about you. As always, a big shout out to my $20 or more patrons. What Jesus, Holmes, Hugh Jarsz, M.C.Nutkin, Wolfie, String News 1, Ashpanash, Curtis Reynolds, and Morrie. If you want to support me financially, click here. But anyway, I will see you in the next video. Between you and me, thank you for watching. Also, people said that they liked the beanie, so I'm keeping the beanie for winter. Then I'll cut the hair off.